Welcome to episode 2 of Keep Making, the Alumalite podcast. Today on the podcast, we've got Mike Faupel. Mike Faupel is the president of Alumalite. Mike, how long have you been working with Alumalite?
I started in 1998.
1998.
So, it's 21 years.
21 years. Holy cow. So you could drink if you were just working.
Yep, that would be...
It'd be a big birthday for you.
Legal drinking age. Bottles in my desk.
Yeah.
Bottom left drawer.
Cool. So I've only been on the job about 3 weeks now. Actually, this is the end of my third week. And the culture around Alumalite is something that has been quite attractive to me. And what you guys have done has actually instilled something in your customers that is where you guys generally want to help. And I don't think that I think a lot of companies do lip service to that, but I don't necessarily think people actually enact that. So today I want to ask you questions about that philosophy, but then also we are actually sitting in your workspace at your house. These are all the things that you and Larry, Larry taught you, or did you do yourself? How did that work? Let's start there.
So, Larry from Podcast One
Yep.
was using our materials to tinker and create things. And in conversation, he called us up one day, and eventually I got the phone, and I was answering questions and teaching him basically how to do what he was trying to do, which is really the core of what we do. If we can just help enough people do what they want to do, we feel like we'll be successful. And that goes back, I've known Larry probably 13 or 14 years now.
Wow.
And he had found our products from a company up in Minnesota called Hub's Hobby, probably a little hobby shop. And he had found our stuff, and he was using it on a workshop on his TV show, and his forum and that type of stuff kind of blew up. And he called us, and he was in the same boat. He wanted people how to do the things that he was doing, and he had questions on how to do it, and it kind of evolved from there.
So in that very first question, I mean, you guys obviously have a long-standing relationship now, but he got stuck, and he's obviously this guy that is very self-reliant, and really it doesn't seem like someone that would necessarily ask for help, but it's really interesting that like he one was able to, but then two, there was no ego involved. I think when you actually got on the phone at the time, you were running the show still, and like when he called up, I remember him saying that, you know, I'll send you the customer service said I'll send you down to Mike, which he always said is pretty interesting, instead of like I send you up.
It's a pretty flat hierarchy,
right,
at our place. We oftentimes call it King Arthur's Round Table. I feel like we're all on the same playing field. Yes, as far as authoritative decisions, some of those have to be, but you know, I believe that there's people that have special gifts and interests and do things a lot better than I do, and look things in different aspects, in different ways in which I would, and I want to basically tap into that. I want to empower people to succeed in their job and their functions. Me playing dictator in some way, shape, or form has never been my style. I believe we support and empower people to do their job the best of their ability. We're going to get more out of them than if we tell them how to do it and mandate it a certain way, and it's worked for us. So.
I'd say that's kind of self-evident. I mean, I think our very first phone call, I got that kind of from you, and it's quite encouraging. So back to the fishing lures that are right behind us.
Yeah.
So you helped him with his projects. When did you start making these suckers? Because there's a lot here, and there's even more on the counter, and they're kind of all over the place. And because you also embody like what we try and instill in our customers, which is like you make with the things we sell.
So I would say probably even 80% of this stuff is things that I would never fish. It's probably people have called us and wanted help with, and we've helped them, and they send us one, or we make one, or we show a video on how to do something. You know, we have some big giant swim baits up here for muskie and pike. Well, we don't fish muskie a whole lot in the Southwest Michigan.
Right.
You know, over in St. Clair and you know, up in Green Bay area, and there's pods of areas in northern Wisconsin. There's a ton of it. Minnesota is huge, but
right, and that's where Larry. Yeah.
So really, these come around basically helping people and educate people, because if we feel like we can educate people on how to use our projects to make our products to make something,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to take it 10 steps farther than we would because they're passionate. They know what we do. We want to teach them the basics, the physics, all the things around lure making, what factors actually play in the development of why does it spin, why does it wobble, why does it sink, how do we make it suspend, how do we do that? So if we feel like we can teach people those basics, they're going to go and develop things that they want to develop, and that's always been our goal.
That's pretty cool. So for you though, personally, where did that start? Because that desire that seems to come quite naturally. So have you always been this way? Like, were you 8 years old and someone asked you for help and you're like, absolutely, I'm on the way?
I was always a pretty outgoing and friendly person. I love jobs with kind of that instant satisfaction type deal. I used to own my own lawn mowing company, and I would do that. I'd mow. You would go to a place and it would look very attractive, and by the time you left it looked like a golf course, right? I love that kind of satisfaction of helping people, so and it's just kind of been part of my DNA. I'll say, I enjoy helping people succeed and helping people do things. I have kids and I've helped coach over the years. I've always been into athletics. Fishing has been a hobby of mine. So, when people are fishing for things I've never even heard of and they want help making something, doing something that hasn't been done before, that's like, putting a bunch of my interests kind of in one wheelhouse, and, it's fun, it's fun helping people, and then seeing, how they're successful, that gives me satisfaction. So.
That's awesome. So let's take it back. How did you start working at Alumalite? Because 21 years is a long time. You're the president now, and there's a lot of changes, but a lot of really great things. So how did you even start working at this company?
So back in the mid-'90s, I was actually working for a specialty chemical distributor out of Columbus, Ohio. Okay. And I covered the west side of the state in northern Indiana. And we sold specialty adhesives, mold releases, mold making and casting compounds, conformal coatings, UV cure systems. You name it. It was, we sold everything from hot melts to glue cardboard boxes together to aerospace adhesives, similar to bonding the tiles on the space shuttle back when.
Holy cow.
So, my job when I'd go into different companies was almost like How It's Made, the team, but it was before How It's Made was ever there. I'd go in and I'd be like, man, that's cool. I didn't know that's how they made stringer systems for boats, and I didn't know they bonded them on with, methyl methacrylates and I
don't even know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. That was me too, literally 25 years ago. And it was great to learn all of those different things from the fiberglass industry in northern Indiana, where the RV capital of the world, to boat builders, to people like Tierra and S2 yachts over along Lake Michigan who are making huge yachts, to Steelcase and Herman Miller and Hayworth, big furniture manufacturers, to doing rapid prototyping. It was broad. People that are doing conformal coatings for electronics, dipping boards that are being used in salt trucks, and they have to be able to withstand the weather and this and that. Well, every place I went into, I was just like, wow, that's so good. I never knew, right? I never knew that's how they made this. And then you go into Kellogg's, who is in Battle Creek, and you learn how to do that, how they make everything from, cornflakes to puffs to you name it, right? It was just it was completely intriguing to me, so I had a very, very wide spectrum of applications and product knowledge and industry knowledge of how people made things.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, it was great.
So then I'm assuming then one of the people in your region had to have been Alumilite.
It was. They were actually one of my customers, and they were making mold making and casting compounds. They were actually a customer of mine, and they were in need of basically somebody to kind of take hold of their sales and marketing and distribution. They were actually making parts. It was like a garage, where you want to get your brakes done. They would, if you wanted parts made, you'd come to them. And 40% of our business at the time was actually making parts for people. The other 60% was actually material sales. And over the evolution of the company, we got so much into educating and helping people that, that portion of, actually making parts just kind of faded away.
So for you, when you came in, obviously like that was a change of pace because you weren't kind of, because you're still doing really broad applications, because really the only thing that limits what you can do with the stuff that we make is your imagination.
Yeah, we oftentimes say it's a hammer and it's a nail, right? It comes in the form of silicone, mold making rubber, and urethane and epoxy casting resins, right? So those are the primary chemistries, but we've expanded that since. But it's a hammer and a nail. Whatever you want to build with it, it's a tree fort, it's a house, it's a boat, it's whatever you want to build with it, right? So these are just tools. Our chemistries are just tools that enable people to make things that are beyond our even imagination. There's people doing things with it, for every different industry possible, it seems like, in using our
yeah,
products.
I mean, everything from like tiny little chess pieces to making stuff for movies to
absolutely.
Medical, rock climbing,
automotive, hobby, scrapbooking, cake decorating, culinary, paleontology, making molds of artifacts and dinosaurs for exhibits and museums, to Comic-Con, to theatrical props, to you name it, it's endless. And we learn of new ones like literally every single week, which is really cool.
Yeah, I've obviously for those of you that don't know who I am, I'm the content creation marketing lead at Alumalite, and I've been taking over the different social media channels and like just poking around and learning, and the fire hose of information that is what is being made with our products. And I just found out like people are making dice for like tabletop games. They're trying to make I was like, what? Like, I know it's so simple, but I was like, in like guitar picks even,
right?
Like
but if
you
were
going to
go make
things
your own,
or the
if you were going to go make your own dice and you had Larry often says that you got an idea to make a better bounce trap, right? You have a different type of dice design that you want to make. How would you do it?
Right. Yeah, you'd have to pay somebody or like do a prototyping or hire someone, like
3D print it maybe, but then you have to have an engineering drawing and CAD. How do you do it, right? Well, our materials basically give people a grassroots level to be able to the ability to make anything from dice to Batmobiles, which has been done. So.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that one.
A full-blown tumbler. A guy in Kalamazoo actually made a full-blown tumbler back 10 years ago, and now he takes it around to football stadiums and shows it off. And
that's so fun. So when did the work, like, you for sure, like obviously you switched careers, you were going around like representing a company, and then you went into Alumalite, and then you were like, this is going to be the thing, like, because obviously 21 years, like just speaking from my context, I'm only 33, working somewhere for 21 years for our generation is like, holy cow, right? So like it's very clear that you're still passionate about this, it's very clear that you still like to help people, it's very clear that you like what you do, which is what everybody I think desires on some level. So how has that evolved with Alumalite?
Well, back when it was the people that I was working with, right? Ron Cross, Mark Green were the founders of Alumalite back in the mid to late 80s. Okay. And those two are both people that I respected very much. One was a tool and die guy, another guy was doing prototyping before prototyping was a thing, and short run production. And so working for guys that I respected, Mark was eventually, he wanted to retire, so Ron bought him out. And then, so Ron and I worked hand in hand for, close to 10 years before he was starting to look at retirement. So I bought into the company, then bought it outright. But, it was the people in the direction and, things that you can't teach people, things like character and integrity and honesty and communication. Well, we had that. So, working with people in an environment where you have control over your own destiny, where people are putting you in a position to succeed and giving you the freedom to go and make things happen, it was a good place for me.
That's cool.
So yeah.
Well, I think I know these questions might seem random, but these are the kinds of things that like I'm super curious about. So I'm assuming people would be super curious about as well.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But like it's always a good peek behind the curtain, because I had a conversation yesterday with Jesse, who's a Valhalla Designs. He makes like knife blanks, and they make wallets and a whole bunch of other stuff with our products.
Sure.
And we were having a conversation on the phone because he he's got a good following on social media and just getting to know. And he's like, I first thought Alumalite was this giant corporation that had no interest in a random business owner that's trying to make stuff with their products. And like, I sometimes like breaking that mysterious wall down, just because it's not this giant corporation that you can't just call up and like someone is literally just going to pick up the phone if you call the number that's on our website.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, especially in today's world, marketing, especially consumers and business, small business, very few times do you actually knock on doors anymore. There's not much door-to-door salesmanship going on, right? It's, the efficiency and time of technology that's added to business recently. People don't know what your building looks like. They don't know, how big is space, what your welcome area looks like, and that type of stuff, because they're never there. So what do they know you from? They know you from, the types of contact. How do you respond? Do you answer the phone, or is there an automated, receptionist that answers you, and you got a bunch of, keypad selections, how your product comes, how fast does it come, what's your website, what's that presence, what's that. So, that people know you by different ways than what they did 20 years ago. Right. When you had literally salespeople knocking on their door for small businesses and large, that's how you communicated, or you went to trade shows. Information sharing and gathering is so much more efficient now that people don't necessarily know who you are and where you are and what you look like.
Right.
And do they care? Most of them don't. They care about how they're treated.
Right. And I think that's what's kind of encouraging, because his experience and how he shared with me, Jesse, and shout out to Valhalla Designs. He's like, your customer service like won me over instantly, because I realized that, one, I could talk to a human being. They could walk me through all the things that I was struggling with, and then I got to know them as well. Like, so he talked a lot to Carol, who's like just in our customer service. She's obviously been around the longest, I would say.
She's been with me probably 20 or so years.
Yeah, so a long time. She knows a lot.
She was my first hire.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome. So, I mean, he was very encouraged after that experience, and like, just that entire process was actually really encouraging for him. So, and I know he's not the only one that's kind of had that experience. He's just the one that's top of mind for someone that's only been here for 3 weeks. So, I want to keep going in regards to where we're at now, because I think that there's a lot of exciting things that are coming down the pipeline.
Absolutely.
And I'm really revved up for it, and that's why I'm doing this podcast. But for you, from a perspective of like legacy of Alumalite, and now moving forward into the future, what are you kind of hoping for?
The philosophy doesn't change. We treat people like we want to be treated. I mean, this is nothing new. The expectations have changed a lot. 5 years ago, if you shipped your product out in a week or so, it was okay. We call it kind of the Amazon effect.
Right.
Amazon has raised that bar where people expect their product to ship in the same day or next day. Well, we started doing that probably 5 to 7 years ago. We saw that early, and anything that could possibly ship same day from our facility shipped same day. It didn't matter if we got the order at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock the night before or 4 p.m. that same day. If it could possibly go out, it would go out. That helps set the tone. It also sets the bar that you now have to hold. Right.
There's no slacking on that bar.
But from Michigan to Southern Illinois, we'd have a customer call us up and ask us 50 questions, and we'd spend 45 minutes on the phone with them, and they would place an order for a small starter kit, and we would get it out that same day. And even Michigan to Southern Illinois was only a next day transit. They were getting it the very next day, and so literally less than 24 hours, they have this company that they call, and somebody picks up the phone and talks to them and shares with them and educates them and spends all the time they want to spend on them. And then they get the product the next day, standard ground shipping. Those are the things that, we want to do for people, right? And those impressions that we leave on people were positive, right? So, those are some of the things that we've really tried to focus on, being the best we can be, treating people the way they want to be treated, and giving them the information they're looking for and the products they want in the most efficient and effective manner possible.
Cool.
So
That's very cool. So that's just that, like, philosophy's not changing. That's just kind of regardless of what happens
but
tomorrow.
now the thing now with the different brands and stuff that we pulled in and the mergers and the acquisitions, and now we have so many different resources and expertises in our system. I'm truly passionate and excited about this because we get to amp up what we've always done, and we get to take it literally to the next level, and probably skip about 3 levels in between. Because we had limited people and limited resources, and now when we start combining these and put people in place to succeed, as far as, hey, we want you to go educate the world on this and this and anything in between, right? Now we get to do what we've always done, but we get to actually do it more efficiently, better, and put a lot of attention and focus toward it. So the strategy doesn't change. How we treat people, I mean, that's the foundation of what we were built on. We want to help people, but now we just get to do it, with jetpacks on our backs. So.
Yeah, which is hence why I'm here. Which is that's I mean, the vision for a company, I think, is what is attractive about this place, and what I want the people that listen to this to, like, actually, it's actually real, because I think people get jaded in our modern society really quickly when they hear about companies and how they function and who's in charge and all those kinds of things. So that's why I'm really glad that you said you would sit down for this, because, like, I want to actually show the world that this is actually real people that are running this thing, and that you really can actually interact with us in really positive ways. And when you, like, send a message on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, you're going to talk to me. It'll be me or my team. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it does matter at the end of the day. One of the things that you talk a lot about is education. Yeah. Can you maybe talk about education and how you learned this? Was this just something that always happened at Alumalite when it came to, like, you had to learn this stuff from somewhere? Yeah.
So, going back to when we had different resins, right? And even when, I hate to say the 90s and the early 2000s, when web design and development and that type of stuff, where you're sitting there, how do you educate people on what this is, right? If you put up, an automotive part or a rapid prototype, whatever you show people first, you're almost going to kind of get stereotyped to that, right? And part of our, challenge of our products is it's limitless, right? I mean, rock climbing handle this and that, and we talk about it all. It doesn't matter, right? Old restoration projects for tractors, right? Somebody's into that, right? And somebody's looking for a solution. I had an interesting one I'll never forget. We were at a hobby show in Chicago, and there was a guy that came all the way from Iowa, and he was sitting there, and we were busy at the booth, and there's 3 people stacked, and this guy's sitting there literally for 40 minutes just sitting there. I'm doing demos, and I'm helping people and teaching people and educating. We're, doing all this type of stuff. And I finally said, hey, do you have any questions? He goes, well, yeah. He goes, and he kind of pulls this thing out, and he unwraps this kind of like, cloth, and he has this little radio knob, right? And I said, yeah, cool. He goes, this is, an automotive kind of restoration for a specific radio, and I've been trying to, reproduce it. And I'm like, oh, we can help you. That's not a problem. I'm like, I'm really super busy, right now. I said, could you leave it with me? And he goes, I drove from Iowa about 10 hours. He goes, I think it was like 10 hours, he said. And he goes, really, this is the only reason I'm here. I'm really not into the hobby type stuff. Right. And I said, just give me a half an hour, 45 minutes, and, I promise I'll spend some time with it. And he kind of reluctantly, like, gives this thing to me, and so he takes off. And so I start, I took some mold putty, which is a 2-part, and it's a platinum cure, and it's quick. So I make a 2-piece mold while I'm teaching other people how to do this. And then I demonstrated how to pour resin for a bunch of people. And he had a little screw with that screw, and it was kind of this blackish brown color, and he had a screw in it. So I took the screw out, and I put the screw into the mold putty, and then cast it around, then unthreaded it. And about 45 minutes or an hour later, he kind of comes back, and he's sitting behind a bunch of people, and I'm talking. And so I reached over, I gave him the cap that the knob that I had actually poured, and I gave it to him, and I was sitting there talking to people, but I waved him over and gave it to him. And he sits there and he looks at it, and then, some people left, and I said, "So what do you think?" And he goes, "Can you help me?"
You didn't read.
And I said, "Look at your knob, Oh, I said, "You want the original back?" And I gave him the original, and his jaw about hit the floor. And then he looked at it, and to be honest, it was 98%. I did this in front of people and and I would have used a liquid rubber, but he was almost like mad at me. It was really funny because he goes, "You wouldn't believe," he goes, then he starts telling me the story behind this antique radio knob. He goes, "Oh, this is an antique radio knob, da-da-da-da-da." He goes, "Literally, I've spent over $2,000 to $3,000 in about 18 months trying to do this." And he goes, "I come here to this show and I leave this, one of a kind knob that it's like there's very few of these, and you reproduce it in 45 minutes for me." Right. And so it was just one of those things, right, where, man, all we want to do is help people. It doesn't matter what the application is, right? But that taught me something, right? Like, people, all they need to know is what they can do with it. If you teach them how to use the hammer and the nail, they'll make all the radio knobs they want to make. They'll make the antique telephones. They'll make this. They'll make that. And, everything that we do, if we can educate people, right, we don't have to hold their hand. So another example really quick is, we have, at the time we had maybe 10 or 15 different resins, and a bunch of them, they did all different things, right? So, how do we'd have technical calls. Well, do I want this one or do I want that one? Or do I want that one? They all seem the same. And I don't understand what shore hardness is, right? And so, one of the first, when we started doing videos, I said, I want a video on every single product that we sell. And I want it easily accessible. When people find the product, they can hit the video and they have a short little 2-minute video on
how to use it.
Yeah. And why this one versus all the other 30 that are on the website. And it was amazing that, we gave people the information they're looking for more efficiently, more effectively. And our technical calls actually dropped off. Our orders started increasing because people could actually figure it out for themselves right there, and it was visual, and it didn't take them a lot of time, and we helped them through that process.
Yeah, I want to pause there and talk about that a little bit, because I as someone that has a marketing background and a production background, when it blew me away that you guys were on YouTube in 2008 and 2009. Companies are just now realizing oh, maybe we should have a YouTube show or something about our products, and that now you guys were doing this over 10 years ago, and you were educating your client, your consumers back then. And I'm just when I think about that, I'm just holy cow. And it's just kind of built into the company already.
So we used to literally, I would shoot the stuff
during the day. You used to do it.
I used to do it, right? And then I would take this. I had a big it was a hardware system. It wasn't a software. It was all built into this one massive 50-pound gorilla computer. Right. And I would basically do it all. I'd have to edit it start to finish kind of at night. And then I would render it because if you let it go or try to save it, it would crash or fail and you'd lose it. And I mean, this is
you have to do everything right away.
Oh, you had to do it all at one time, and then it would render all night, and then I'd wake up in the morning, and then I would load it to YouTube, which could take, a 7-8 minute video would take back then. It could take an hour and a half, 2 hours to upload these videos, and then we'd do that. And then I'd go to work, and then, we'd, shoot another video, two a week or whatever. And I'd video edit them all night. And but it was that important to us, right? We knew that it was important to basically help people understand what to do, what the products could do, which ones would I use, how would I use them, what does it look like, and just the whole. I mean,
to me, it's really cool, and also I have been sharing those old videos
on
some
purpose.
Some
of them are awful.
Some of them are so great though, because you in 2009, you don't really look that different.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I'll take that. I'll take that. So.
But it's really great to see the process, and also I could tell you're not just the products and everything really well, but I can see you're learning how to do the video side.
Oh, yeah, it was awful. Those early ones were awful. There's no other way.
I know, but here's the thing. Most people wouldn't even do that because they're they might be too insecure that like they're on camera, or they might not be saying the right thing or whatever. The best part about, for me, regardless of the quality of the edit or whatever, is like you had zero shame, which is good, which in my opinion is really good.
That's the impression. You had no shame at all. Like,
Yeah,
you just
I
got there
love
and
it.
embarrassed yourself. No, but I mean, back then, honestly, when we started, we thought we had to tell them everything, right? And through time, and then you start watching your old video, and you're like, oh my gosh, just shut up, just give them the meat and potatoes. I mean, they get it, right? So, but the intent behind all of it has always been the same, and that hasn't changed, and I don't foresee that changing anytime in the future. So, and it's genuine,
right? And that's I guess that's where. I know we keep kind of circular on the same subjects, but that's what's really exciting for me. And like, I could feel that intent in our very first phone call. And I think people that actually call Alumilite and talk to our customer service can feel that intent. Or if they shoot us an email, a message, or whatever, like that intent can be felt. And you can't really buy that. And that's the best part, I think.
And it's not to say that we won't have trouble. We won't have a product issue that we need to correct and that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
still human.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Things are going to happen. Raw materials are going to change. This is going to happen, but how do we react and how do we work through it, and, how do we resolve the issues? We do it with the same passion. So,
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about you. And what I mean by that is, like, you know how to make all this stuff. You obviously, fishing is a hobby. The stuff is an example behind us, but I have a feeling you probably like to approach most of life this way of like, if you can tackle it, you're probably going to tackle it. Is that right? Or is that like, because I also haven't known you that long, so I'm super curious if this is how like you just approach life in general.
I enjoy life. My faith is a big part of my life. My passion for people, my connection with people. I enjoy working together with people, succeeding as a team. Individual success doesn't mean a whole lot to me. I really pride myself in, who I can help, who I can help win. If I can help a bunch of people in my organization win, guess what? I'm going to be successful as well. So, I love that. I love the connections, the people that we have, some of the stories of our employees, the backgrounds, it's their stories are inspiring, and the things where they've come and what they do now. You got to give people a chance, right? And then support them and hold them to an expectation level. It's not just giving them a chance and, hoping they make it, right? So, there's definite expectations. There's definite objectives. There's definite goals. There's lines, that we simply don't cross. Hey, this is what we expect. This is what we do. Right. The ball's in your court, right? And the people that want to take advantage of that and see that opportunity and pick the ball up and run with it have done extremely well in our company. So the making part. One of the working title for this podcast is called Keep Making. And it seems to work, and it's something that, like, for me gets me excited when it comes to like the things that we do as a company. Because we help people to actually keep making whatever it is that they want to make. So, and like, it's something that Larry does. That's why he was on the podcast. And I think any future guests, it's part of like who they are on some level. They like want to help make things. And for you, it's also in a business sense. Like, it's very clear, like, you like setting people up for success. Absolutely.
And like it doesn't really matter what you're making. It doesn't have to be a fishing lure. It really can be a song. It can be a new piece of software. Like that's all still part of the same creative juices that kind of exist. So how does that resonate with you in regards to like that idea of keep making? Because I haven't even talked to you about that.
So keep making. I mean, like, we get phone calls almost on a weekly basis of somebody doing something that we've never even experienced before. Even in 21 years, maybe it's not weekly, but I'll say, a couple times a month we're somebody will have a question. I'm trying to make this. Sometimes we don't even know what this is, right? Tell me what that is because I'm clueless, right? You know, but give me a shape. Send me a picture. They'll text us a picture while we're on the phone with them, and you know, oh, okay, that's really cool. What do you do with that? You know, what factors? You know, do you have to worry about heat? Do you have to worry about impact resistance? You know, what's important to you about this? Is it just cosmetic? Is it right? So then we learn what's important to them. Then we can normally help them through it. So you know, it's when people call us, they typically have a specific, you know, there's an order. Number one, I'm trying to do this. Can you help? Right? Yes. Or no, or you know what, I'd recommend doing it this way. And a lot of times we recommend, hey, that's you know, you need to go into injection molding because of this and this, and because your volumes, you're talking hundreds of thousands of these things a year, you know, or, you know, so we will oftentimes recommend stuff that's not from us because that's the way to help people, right? You know, a lot of times the answer is yes, we can help you. The very second question they ask is, well, how do I do it? Right.
Lots of failure.
No, hopefully not.
Hopefully not. But I mean, like, you got to learn somehow.
So how do I do it? Well, you're going to need to make a 2-piece mold and a 2-piece mold. And, you know, like the little Army guys that you had as a kid, they have this big seam, you know, that line that goes over their head. And out to their,
I definitely
that's
remember
a seam
those.
line. That's, you know, and we explain this is a 2-piece mold. That's where the 2 halves of the mold open up. So you'll have a left and a right or a front and a back or whatever it might be. And then, so that we walk them through the process. And then what's the next question they ask? Well, which products do I need? Right? So can you help me? Yes. How do I do it? 2, 3, what do I need to do this myself? And then 4, you know, is pretty much how soon can I get it? Where can I get it? How do I get it? You know, what sizes? How much do I need? And that's the process. And if we can help that person make that widget, that thing that he wants to make, normally we have very, you know, long-lasting relationships because there's a reason he or she needs to make that widget. You know, and if they want to make it and they want to make 50 of them, they want to make 500 of them, they want to make 2 of them, it doesn't matter to us, right? But a lot of people build a better mousetrap, as Larry would say, and then they need to make them, and then they start selling them, and then they become a small business, and then their business depends on our business, and they're succeeding. They're helping us succeed, and it's a win-win. You know, they're selling products that is a solution for somebody else. And it's kind of that snowball effect.
Yeah, that's funny you just mentioned that because that's exactly how Jess framed his business, the Valhalla Designs guy.
Oh, really?
Because he's like, I started doing this, and then I realized this became my full-time job. But I started making, you know, these wallet holders, and now I'm mostly making things for other people so that they can make things. And I was like, oh, that sounds eerily familiar.
Right.
That sounds exactly like us.
Right.
Because his demand
evolved, right.
just like grew to make these blanks. And so he's like, I'm good at making them, so I just make a bunch of those and sell those. Yeah. And it's just pretty fascinating how that works.
It is.
Yeah.
So, to empower people, you know, to give them an avenue to go and create things. It's a fun and satisfying part of what we do.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're probably going to wrap up here somewhat soon, but one of the things that I want to offer the guests is an opportunity to ask me a question. I know it's putting you on the spot. You don't have to ask one. Larry was just kind of like, well, hopefully you just keep kind of doing this. And like, he was just really excited to like make some videos together about fishing. And he's just, as long as you don't, you know, throw your the line into the trees and that kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm going to do my best. I'll practice if I ever get a chance to fish with him. But wanted to give you the floor if you wanted to ask me any questions. If not, then we'll probably just wrap it up.
So a great one, talking about education, right? So with our philosophy that you now understand very, very well and are excited about, you know, what have you done in the past that kind of shadows this or kind of prepares you to take on this new challenge?
Yeah, so I think one of the more exciting ones for me is a couple of years ago I had the opportunity to work on marketing, and the company that I worked for before made a movie. It's called Caton Vance, and Gary Busey's in it and Jimmy Tatro, and like they made this movie. There was a dream of theirs for 10 years. I'd known him that entire time. I was very excited for him, and I worked for their company. And they knew that I was really into social media and I was really into that kind of content, and I was really familiar with how to navigate that world. And when they decided to self-distribute and sell it themselves because they got a deal from MGM, they were like, hey, do you want to lead that side of the charge? And I was like, yes. I've
Absolutely.
never done it before, but I was very much like, absolutely. So I like really very quickly in a short order, like self-taught myself how to like make Facebook ads and how to do paid advertising on Instagram and what would it look like to run a Twitter spot or like Google Analytics and then also like Google AdWords. Let's figure out how to do all of this.
Right.
But then also like, let's make content that people are actually going to like. So we had this really long movie and all this behind the scenes footage. So like, let's start working with editors and create a vision for the whole thing. And then I mean, I lived and breathed that sucker for like, I'd say a solid 5 or 6 months of just only doing,
Right.
I mean, like on Instagram, constantly like messaging people that are asking about the movie and then finding people that are actually our target audience. Like one of the things we learned after, I'd say even like 4 weeks in, we let go of the PR agency that we were working with because we're having more success on the social channels because we were able to actually go after the people that wanted the movie. So
Nice.
The education side for me and like what resonates with Alumalite is like you normally start off doing something and then you realize, oh, what actually you just need to pivot a little bit to actually help the people that we're trying to help.
Right.
And obviously it was a piece of entertainment. We were trying to entertain. So we just actually had to find the right audience. We thought it was a bit broader, but then it narrowed it down. So
Nice.
for me, it was, what resonates here is I actually get to do that at scale for a company, but we get to do it on a regular basis where, you know, we're going to educate about a product,
Yeah.
try and get it in the right people's hands, and then do that again and do it again and do it again.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it shadows it. And so I get to like just accelerate that like crazy.
Yeah.
And also I get to make podcasts, which I also really like doing. So there's a little bit of like, you know, my own
awesome.
joy that gets to be
Sure.
fulfilled because I like doing interviews and this kind of stuff. So
Nice.
yeah.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm
do
really
it
glad
again.
you decided to do it. I'm definitely going to have you back at some point. We'll have to do like a retro after we've had a whole bunch of people on it.
man,
And you
sounds
listen to
good.
me be like, those first ones, like those first videos
Videos,
you made
right,
2009, you're
right.
like, those were a little, shaky. Let's do them again.
Oh, man, he's calling my first podcast shaky.
No, I'm talking
already.
about me. I'm talking about me. All right.
you're good.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.